El Al does not ask if someone is trying to attack. It assumes they already are. That mindset mirrors the core philosophy behind zero trust architecture, a concept widely endorsed by organizations around the world. It means trust is never implicit. Every request is verified. Every anomaly is investigated. El Al has been operating a human version of zero trust for decades. Welcome to Threat Level Red. I'm your host, Charles Denyer, and tonight we ask why the most effective aviation security model in the world is also the one most societies refuse to adopt. Beginning at Ben Gurion, where an airport functions as a fortress, we examine how El Al extends their hardened security doctrine forged in blood and hijackings into foreign airports it does not control, but refuses to leave unguarded.
Welcome to Threat Level Red, a Charles Denyer Productions podcast. Every week, Charles brings his real-world expertise to the front lines of America's most pressing threats: cyber attacks, extremist networks, rogue states, terrorism, economic instability, systemic breakdowns, and so much more. From the digital battleground to the streets of America, no threat is left uncovered. No spin, no filters, just intel.
We start this episode with a simple yet profoundly important question. If El Al's security system is so effective, then why hasn't the rest of the world copied it? The answer is not technical. It's political, cultural, economic, and quite frankly, deeply uncomfortable. Most global airlines operate on a single dominant assumption. Passengers are the customers, and that comes first. And the risks, well, they come second. Speed, scale, and throughput define success, and ultimately profits. Airports are designed to move tens of thousands of people per hour with minimal friction. They are built for speed, volume, and convenience. But because real security interrupts all three of these metrics, El Al refuses to play by those rules. Here is the first dividing line. El Al operates in a national security environment where aviation is inseparable from state survival. Its security model is tightly integrated with Israeli intelligence services, law enforcement, and military doctrine. That level of integration simply does not exist for most civilian airlines, especially in liberal democracies where intelligence separation and privacy laws limit information sharing. Put simply, El Al can do things other airlines legally cannot, and that is exactly why this airline has the best intelligence in the world. Then there is scale. El Al is relatively a small airline, operating at a size that pales in comparison to global giants like American, Delta, or United. That size matters because it allows El Al to invest in highly trained human interviewers, conduct lengthy individualized questioning, and apply bespoke security measures tailored to each passenger rather than relying on mass screening. Try imposing that model on mega hubs like Heathrow, JFK, Hartsfield, LAX, or Dubai. Airports that process hundreds of thousands of passengers every day, and very quickly, the El Al model simply collapses under its own operational weight. Bottom line, the global aviation industry chooses standardization because it scales. El Al chooses discretion, and why? Because survival demands it. And then there is the politics of discomfort. After 9/11, many Western governments briefly flirted with Israeli-style behavioral screening. The U.S. Transportation Security Administration experimented with programs inspired by it. European states debated it, and then, almost universally, they retreated. And why? Because of legal challenges, civil liberties concerns, and public backlash made one thing clear. Most societies were unwilling to openly accept differential treatment at the airport, even if it promised better outcomes. So instead, the world embraced technology. Scanners, algorithms, biometrics, risk scores hidden behind neutral language. The appearance of fairness, everyone screened the same, well, that became the governing value. El Al has never chased that appearance, it chases results. This creates a stark contrast. Global aviation security is largely compliance-driven, meeting minimum standards set by international bodies. El Al is threat-driven, always evolving based on adversary behavior. And here's the irony. Despite spending billions on aviation security since 9/11, The global system still relies heavily on deterrence theater, visible measures meant to reassure the public. El Al relies on quiet prevention. No spectacle, no reassurance, just outcomes. But the divide remains stark. The world looked at El Al's model and decided it was too invasive and too politically costly. El Al looked at the world and decided the cost of failure was too costly. Which leads us to the next unavoidable question, one that goes far beyond aviation. If the most successful security model is also the least politically acceptable, what does that say about how modern societies truly define security? If El Al is the security doctrine in the air, Ben Gurion Airport is the fortress on the ground. And that difference is crystal clear before you ever see a departure board. At most major airports, the first true security moment begins at check-in or at the TSA line. At Ben Gurion, security begins outside the terminal. At the perimeter, the vehicles are screened and spot-checked before they even enter the airport compound. It's a small design choice with a big message that says, the threat doesn't start at the gate, it starts somewhere unknown, then dropped off at the curb. Inside, the philosophy stays consistent. Humans first, technology second. Ben Gurion is famous for its use of trained security personnel who engage passengers, sometimes with structured questioning before check-in, looking for inconsistencies, anomalies, and indicators that don't show up on an X-ray. It's what one news outlet describes as Israel's model of airport security, highly layered, rooted in past attacks on Israeli aviation, and built around prevention rather than reaction. Now compare that with the rest of the world. Most global airports, as mentioned earlier, are built for scale and uniformity. Standardized processes aligned to minimum international baseline requirements. In short, a system that is designed to be consistent, legally defensible, and with high throughput. This is a system that's great at catching objects, such as weapons, liquids, explosives, but that's about it. So what do they struggle with? Well, they struggle with intent, because intent is not metallic, not radioactive, and not always visible. At Ben Gurion, security interrogates intent, behavior, and story long before it ever touches a bag. This is exactly why experts routinely call Ben Gurion the most secure airport in the world, and why it's frequently cited that way in mainstream reporting. And yes, Ben Gurion has vulnerabilities. Even the best systems leak, such as the stowaway incident in which a man allegedly evaded controls and boarded a flight to Vienna. An uncomfortable reminder that elite security is not the same thing as perfect security. So here's the hard question Ben Gurion forces onto the rest of the world. If the airport most associated with world-class security still has close calls, what does that really say about the airports that optimize mainly for speed, volume, and customer experience? And how many risks are quietly being accepted just to keep the line moving and the profits flowing? The real question isn't whether El Al Airlines is secure at Ben Gurion Airport. That much is settled. The real question, the one that actually matters, is how an airline maintains that level of culture and security everywhere else at airports thousands of miles away it does not own, control, or fully trust. The answer is quite simple and straightforward. El Al does not outsource trust. Most airlines treat security as something anchored to a location. The airport provides the screening, the perimeter, the technology, and the procedures. Once the aircraft pushes back from the gate, the system assumes the job is done. El Al rejects that assumption entirely. For them, security is not a place you pass through, it's a doctrine that travels with the aircraft. Wherever El Al flies, the Israeli security philosophy goes with it. At international destinations around the world, El Al deploys its own security personnel, Israeli-trained officers, behavioral specialists, and aviation security professionals who embed directly into the departure process. They work closely with local airport authorities, but they do not defer blindly. Foreign airport security is viewed as necessary, but never sufficient. Oversight, redundancy, and verification are not optional add-ons. They are foundational for El Al's security culture. This philosophy becomes most visible in how passengers are screened. Behavioral profiling, often associated exclusively with Ben Gurion, does not stop at Israel's borders. El Al security officers conduct targeted interviews overseas, asking layered, unscripted questions designed to evaluate consistency, plausibility, and stress responses rather than relying solely on documents or machines. These interactions can occur before check-in, during check-in, and sometimes again at the gate. And baggage screening follows the same doctrine. Local airport X-ray and CT screening still takes place, but El Al adds its own layers. Checked bags may undergo secondary inspections, controlled handling procedures, and chain of custody oversight supervised by El Al personnel. In higher risk environments, baggage is treated as suspect until proven safe, even after it has already cleared standard screening. Then there is the aircraft itself. Before departure, El Al Security conducts physical searches of the plane, cargo holds, galleys, lavatories, access panels, looking for signs of tampering or anomalies. This happens even at airports considered safe, and even when the aircraft arrive empty. For El Al, their aircraft are not just transportation, they are a protected asset. Around the plane, El Al establishes its own security bubble. Ground crews are vetted, access is highly restricted, and movement near the aircraft is highly monitored. Where most airlines rely almost entirely on outsourced airport ramp security, El Al assumes direct responsibility for the immediate perimeter surrounding its aircraft. Underlying all of this is intelligence. El Al's security posture is informed by route-specific threat assessments, geopolitical developments, and intelligence coordination. Bottom line, if a destination's risk profile changes, procedures can escalate quietly and immediately without public notice. Yes, this system is expensive. Yes, it is labor-intensive. It's also politically uncomfortable and logistically complex. Most airlines cannot or will never operate this way. El Al does it because it accepts a reality where others prefer to avoid. And what is that reality? That in aviation security, the margin for error is zero. Let's be honest, for some passengers, the psychological effect is real. Some experience discomfort, but most feel reassured, preferring a few difficult questions to the unease of feeling unprotected at 35,000 feet. Not everyone experiences it the same way, and El Al does not pretend otherwise. The airline has been explicit through both government and corporate voices about the trade-off it is willing to make. Complaints can be addressed, funerals cannot. Ben Gurion may be the fortress, but the fortress is not the point. The point is that wherever El Al flies, the mindset flies with it. El Al's story does not belong only to aviation. It belongs to every system that protects something valuable in a hostile environment. Because once you strip away the aircraft, the uniforms, and the airport gates, what El Al is really practicing is modern risk management under constant adversarial pressure. And that lesson translates cleanly, almost uncomfortably, into cybersecurity, critical infrastructure, and national defense. Start with the first principle, assume breach. El Al does not ask if someone is trying to attack. It assumes they already are. That mindset mirrors the core philosophy behind zero trust architecture, a concept widely endorsed by organizations around the world. It means trust is never implicit. Every request is verified. Every anomaly is investigated. El Al has been operating a human version of zero trust for decades. Second, intelligence beats compliance. Most airlines lean heavily on industry-derived compliance metrics to say they are secure. El Al secures itself to survive adversaries. In the real world, compliance frameworks define baselines, not real security. Real defense comes from threat intelligence, context, and anticipation. El Al integrates intelligence before a passenger arrives. Organizations that understand security do the same. They monitor attack behavior, supply chain risks, and geopolitical signals rather than waiting for alerts to trigger. Third, humans matter more than tools. So El Al invests relentlessly in training people to detect intent. And that's a good thing. Most organizations often do the opposite, buying more tools and technology while underinvesting in what I call the human element. The difference matters when adversaries adapt faster than systems and technology. Fourth, friction is not failure. This one's important. El Al accepts delays, inconvenience, and complaints as a price of prevention and safety. Modern digital systems often treat friction as the enemy, preferring to streamline access, reduce authentication steps, and prioritize the user experience. The result, security breaches caused not by sophisticated exploits, but by convenience-driven shortcuts. In both aviation and cyber, El Al shows us that friction can be a damn good control, one that saves lives. Finally, security is cultural. El Al's model works because everyone, from leadership to frontline officers, share the same assumptions about threat and responsibility. For more than half a century, El Al has made the same choice again and again. Survival over speed, prevention over popularity, outcomes over optics. It does not apologize for delays. It does not pretend risk is evenly distributed. It does not market security as comfort. It treats it as a consequence. And that is precisely why El Al unsettles so many people. Because El Al forces an uncomfortable reckoning, one that goes far beyond aviation. It asks societies, organizations, and leaders to confront a question most would rather avoid. What are you actually willing to tolerate in the name of safety? And what are you pretending not to see? And while global aviation has suffered repeated catastrophic attacks, despite layers of standardized screening, El Al, one of the most persistently targeted airlines in history, has not suffered a successful terrorist attack on its flights since 1968. So, as this episode comes to a close, the final question lingers, not just over El Al, but over every system tasked with protecting human life. If the most effective security models require discomfort, scrutiny, and unapologetic judgment, is the world unwilling to adopt them or unwilling to admit the threat they were built to stop? I'm Charles Denyer. I work where cybersecurity, intelligence, and national security converge, alongside defense leaders, government agencies, and organizations that understand the difference between compliance and survival. I help build airtight security and privacy programs designed to hold under nation-state pressures, insider compromise, and attacks that unfold quietly long before alarms ever sound. You can reach me at charlesdenyer.com for a free one-on-one consultation. In our next episode of Threat Level Red, 26 Minutes to Impact, America on the brink of a Russian ICBM strike. We break down how a nuclear launch would unfold in real time, what U.S. leaders would know, what choices they would face, and how little time there would be to get it right. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Charles Denyer. This is Threat Level Red.
Threat Level Red is a Charles Denyer Productions podcast. For more information, visit charlesdenyer.com to learn more about current and upcoming podcasts and episodes, current and future book publications, professional services offered by Charles, and much more. All opinions expressed are those of the host and do not reflect the official positions of any government agency, military branch, or national security organization.